And it's coming through on that, not on the mainstream media, not on Sky News, not on CNBC, BBC, but it's coming through. So the youth are seeing it, and they're intelligent young people, they're reading about it. The older generation have been influenced by the media, the Zionist media, and that's the problem. I know that the older generation in America, I mean, I've spoken to them, I have relatives there, and I've said to them, surely you will now support Palestine. And they believe that the Israeli state are upholding law and order. This was immediately after the genocide started.
Global solidarity with the Palestinian people and their just cause has grown significantly in recent years as Israel has increasingly been exposed internationally as an occupying power accused of committing genocide in Gaza and carrying out policies of ethnic cleansing in the occupied West Bank. This solidarity has taken many forms across sports, culture, academia, and economic movements worldwide. To discuss these developments and the role of international solidarity through sports, we are joined by Mr. Stephen Redmond, Special Advisor to GAA Palestine, who is currently visiting the occupied Palestinian territory. Welcome to the program, Steve.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
You're welcome. Let me start with your visit to the occupied Palestinian territories. You visited different villages, refugee camps, and cities. So what is your review of the situation on the ground?
There's two very extreme perceptions or views I have now at the moment. It's the resilience of the Palestinian people to continue life as normal, as anyone would around the world, to enjoy the cultural events, weddings, try to go to school where it's possible, and spend family time together and try to go to work where it's possible. The resilience seeing that is astounding, how they can do that under a terrible occupation from the Israeli state and also terrorism from settlers.
Yeah, and you have met with many families and you visited them at their homes and at their farms. If you tell us what these families shared with you concerning their everyday life, especially we are talking about very difficult conditions these days, as not only Israeli military incursions into their villages, but also the Israeli settlers' crimes against the people, their livestock and their property. So what do you remember of their accounts?
The terrible stories I hear, some of it's unspeakable. I mean, I don't know how the people can live as they are. Trying to get around with checkpoints everywhere, static checkpoints, mobile checkpoints. I mean, commerce, getting to your job, you know, to have a career is just, it's impossible. You know, you could be at a checkpoint from half an hour to 3 hours. Settlers encroaching on you. Trying to travel at nighttime, you can't because you can be attacked. Even during the daytime, I was with a driver in South Bethlehem and we pulled up next to settlers by a bus stop. We can't look at those settlers and the driver must have both hands on the steering wheel. And the reason being, if he doesn't have both hands on the steering wheel, he can be accused, he can be shot, and then the accusation could be he was reaching for a gun. If we view them, look at them, the settlers, they can say we were trying to intimidate them and they feared for their lives and you could be shot. And it's happening. Only a few days ago, a poor Palestinian man had a collision in a car with a settler and he was shot and killed, even though it was an accident.
Yeah. And back at home, Stephen, a lot of solidarity, and we saw demonstrations in hundreds of thousands of people in the streets of London, voicing their support for the rights of the Palestinian people, refusing Israeli genocide in Gaza, ethnic cleansing in West Bank and Jerusalem. So how the situation that we have on the ground here affects the situation in London and gives the momentum for the solidarity movement?
Well, I think, you know, groups like us, sporting activity groups, social media, journalists getting the message out to these people, they can see what's happening and it's bringing more people in, for starters. We've seen a lot more people in America, for instance. The youth, I remember an interview I had with you a few years ago and I said we need the youth of America to come on board, and the polls are showing that the youth are now more in line with the Palestinian struggle than with the Israeli occupation. But in regards to London and Ireland, the momentum is increasing incredibly. More and more people are coming to the cause because more information is getting out. The Israelis, their arguments have been debunked, we are seeing congressmen in America as well who are turning away from the Israeli state, turning away from supporting it and AIPAC, because they can see the voting trajectory is towards supporting Palestine and stopping this evil occupation.
Yeah, but the activists and the people who show solidarity with the Palestinians face a lot of difficulties these days because of the police brutality sometimes, and because of the attempt by the government to stop them and to accuse them of terrorism actions. So how do you think the people overcome such accusations and such challenges imposed by the government against them?
Yeah, well, if I can go back to Yvette Cooper, who's received a substantial sum from Israeli Friends of Labour. Very shortly after that, she prescribed Palestine Action. Now, they've prescribed it as a terrorist organization, even though it isn't. There are laws to deal with groups like Palestine Action, but they're not a terrorist organization. So you have groups coming out, elderly people, you've got retired army people, doctors, you've got shopkeepers, you've got a broad spectrum of support going out and holding up a sign that says, "We support Palestine Action," and they're being arrested for it. I myself have been arrested in London for supporting an elderly woman who was holding a sign like that, and the police were treating her robustly. I intervened, as a number of people intervened. I ended up being arrested myself. I was, abused by the police. And I'm still banned from London. And I'm just one. There are hundreds of people that are banned from London, going to prison. It's terrible. And, they're against a genocide. These people are fighting against the genocide. They want to stop the war. They want to stop killing. And they're being arrested and classified as terrorists.
Yeah, and we all saw what happened with the Samudi flotilla activists when they were detained by the Israeli forces and the Israeli Minister of Home Security, Ben Gvir. They were humiliated. They were forced to kneel down on the ground, and some said that they were exposed even to sexual abuse. So how do you think such repressive measures by the Israeli forces and at the same time the laws by some Western governments against those activists, how would this affect the trajectory and the track of the solidarity movement with the Palestinians?
First of all, there were rapes. It wasn't just any sexual assault. There was rapes, I believe, on men and women. I've heard some testimonies that have been put online from these people, and some of the acts were unspeakable, really. Beatings, playing the Israeli national anthem, psychological torture, really, or bad treatment. We also had the sister of the President of Ireland there, Dr. Margaret Connolly, who's the sister of Uachtar na HÉireann, President of Ireland, Catherine Connolly. She was abused too, as I think everyone was, cable-tied and processed like common criminals.
Yeah. And would this frustrate the solidarity movement?
This will increase the solidarity movement.
So it's going to be the opposite,
Yeah, this will increase it. And I'll tell you why. People are waking up around the world. People are reading about this every day now. People want to know what they're talking about because the Israeli arguments have been debunked regular. I mean, they lie and they lie and they lie, and they've been proven to lie. We have a number of international institutions that have created reports, from the United Nations to Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese. You've got Amnesty International and numerous other groups. And you can't ignore these reports. But unfortunately, it goes back to the old saying, money is the root of the poison tree. And government ministers across the Western Hemisphere are bribed, or what they call it a different word. They're lobbied And this is the problem. We need to take away this lobbying process, from AIPAC, from, Israeli Friends of Labour, Israeli Friends of Conservative Party, because all it is doing is perpetuating the problem. David Lammy, for instance, I think it was in November 23, after the genocide started, he was lobbied by Gary Luby, who was an ex-white South African apartheid profiteer. David Lammy himself is a black man and should know better. He took money from him because he's representing the Israeli state now. And within the week of taking that, I think it was £80,000, I can stand to be corrected, but it was £80,000, he abstained from the vote on the ceasefire in Gaza.
Yeah. And do you think that the Solidarity Movement has the power to resist such a track in the West and get the Palestinian voice raised and overcome the Israeli lobbies in the West?
I think it will, but I think it's going to take a while. But it is on track for that. It is moving towards that. The younger people have social media. They're open to numerous media groups, TikTok, Instagram, all these sorts of platforms. And it's coming through on that, not on the mainstream media, not on Sky News, not on CNBC, BBC, but it's coming through. So the youth are seeing it. And they're intelligent young people, they're reading about it. The older generation have been influenced by the media, the Zionist media, and that's the problem. I know that the older generation in America, I've spoken to them, I have relatives there, and I've said to them, surely you will now support Palestine. And they believe that the Israeli state are upholding law and order. This was immediately after the genocide started. But I think they may have a different perception now. I, in fact, sent them a book written by Michael Scott Bauer to try and educate them, because people haven't been reading about this subject. They've been listening to media. That's where all their input comes from, Zionist media. Yeah. And, if you're listening to that 24/7, you're going to start thinking, well, there's no smoke without fire. Maybe it's true. But when you're seeing children slaughtered commercially, men, women, and children, mosques, churches just destroyed, every educational institution destroyed in an area, and look, this is not going to stop here. And I'm annoyed with the Arab states because...
But Steve, you're talking about the importance of education of the people, and you sent your relatives a book about that. But sport also is of high importance, and you're a special advisor to GA Palestine president.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you tell me about GA Palestine and how it supports the Palestinian sport and the Palestinian children and the Palestinian youth, and what have you achieved in this regard?
Well, this is a group, it's a non-political group, it's a sporting organization, and we have achieved a tremendous amount in the time that we've been doing it since January 24. We have a number of clubs around the West Bank. There at one time we had a club in Tulcrum, or the starting of a club in Tulcrum, in Al Khalil, Ramallah, stroke Al-Bira, South Bethlehem, and in Jenin. Unfortunately, due to the occupation, a number of members have been imprisoned, shot, killed, which has affected the ability of those clubs to operate. But we're building a community. We're building a platform for children to grow and learn, to be mentored, to feel cared for by someone else, like a nation outside of Palestine, that they're not alone. And I just have to add that it's the people of Ireland and the president of Ireland that are behind the Palestinians. The governments are all compromised in some respects. But so let's go back to the sporting aspect. They welcome us warmly every time we see them. They're playing hurling. We've taken them to Jordan on a lovely holiday last year, which we call a Kol Camp, which is like a training holiday sort of thing. We're looking to take them to other regions around the world, like Vietnam, maybe Spain, in the future, to play against other clubs. But it is helping them psychologically, socially, and physically.
But, when people from outside, look at the Palestinian situation, they think that Palestine lives a state of ongoing war and politics is everything. And the sport is on the margins subsided. Now, when you train the Palestinian youth and the Palestinian children, and when they have matches with athletes from other countries, how do you see their craving for sport and their performance in this regard?
Well, we have a few players there that are extremely good, you know, and they enjoy the social aspect, the community aspect when they're playing against people that they don't know, they've never met, from another nation. It's opening up doors for them, and it's creating new friendships, new community. And that's what the GAA is all about. It's where we all belong. Yes. And we understand from our past, the GAA, they actually call it the freedom sport here because that's where GAA came from under resistance, under British occupation.
Yeah. And you're talking about sport and about the community, and this is going to be our last segment really. You visited Jenin and the town of Qabatia, southern the city of Jenin, and you met families and you visited a farm there. So how do you see the Palestinians' ability to adapt and to handle the difficulties that they are facing? Because, you know, a lot of military incursions by the Israeli forces and settlers' violence, but the people are determined to have life and to celebrate and to enjoy. So I want you to tell me about your experience with the people there and tell the world who might be watching our episode, our program, how the Palestinians in this part of the world love life.
They love life immensely. I was invited to a barbecue. I went to a wedding. I was on a farm. I was walking around with the farmers, enjoying them showing me the vegetables that they were growing. For the first time since 1985, I drove a tractor, which was amazing. I mean, a Massey Ferguson tractor. The amounts of smiles we had walking those fields together, it would bring tears to your eyes when you see that contrasted with the backdrop. But they're enjoying life like anywhere else. You could have been in Turkey, could have been in Spain. There was no difference. And I wanted to tell more people about that, but they might think, what, that's the West Bank? And it might take away from the fact that what's going on in the background, but you could have been anywhere else in the world in freedom. And they were actually free. For those times I was with them, they were free. They were human, normal. They were enjoying life, the sun. You know, we were laughing together, going through the fields, having pictures. We were picking fruit. Cooking was going on. I was eating fruit off the trees. They were eating fruit off the trees. The kids were running around. You know, it was beautiful. And for a moment, I didn't even realize it was in Palestine, if I'm honest, it's...
Especially, you told me that your wife was worried about you visiting Palestine. So
yeah.
What do you say to your wife now?
Well, I sent my wife all those videos because she's worried because I'm in the occupied territories that I'm going to get shot or killed or arrested. So I sent her those pictures and she says, "What, that's in Palestine?" I says, "Yeah." She says, "Well, why don't you take," she actually said, "Why don't you take me there? Because I'd go there." She says, "I thought there'd be all shooting and terrible things going on." And I says, "Well, that sort of goes on outside, but the Palestinians are enjoying life to the full." It was like, to be honest, it was like a holiday.
So next time you come with your wife?
I would love to bring my wife, yes, I would, yeah, I would.
Steve, it has been a great pleasure having you on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. And from you, Osama Nazal, have a nice time.